again, I'm JD. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe, please hit like, and please share it with others. Today I'm wearing a toque because that's what you call it up here in Canada. It's starting to get cold. It's 13 degrees Celsius out there. It's starting to get cold. It's probably 60 something Fahrenheit. I'm not sure what that is anymore in Fahrenheit. I know 82 is nice and hot and comfortable, and Celsius it's 70 or 23 or something like that, which is also nice and comfortable. 21, 23, something like that. Anyway, today we're not talking about Celsius or Fahrenheit. Today we're talking about pocket watches. So the challenge in front of me today is this little bugger here. So this is a Waltham pocket watch. It's a very nice little watch. It's a 7 jewel, so it's not a high jeweled watch, but I have leftover work that needs to be done on this pocket watch. And let me tell you what I mean. Let me describe very quickly what I mean. So I grab my handy dandy tweezers. This watch is completely together, so there's no issue there. Let me get my little, I'm going to use my tweezers. Let me put on my little tiny finger cots here, just so you guys don't get mad at me. I'm installing the finger cots. Had a fun day today trying to get my chroma key working on my camera. And that's where you get a green screen background and you try to match the chroma key with the green screen background and have lots of fun trying to do it. So this is the best I could do. Probably not wear one of these light blue shirts anymore because it just screws up the chroma key big time. I should be looking at the camera. Stephen Colbert has got COVID, but he still did a show today, which is pretty amazing. So let me move along here. So this is the device. This is the pocket watch we're looking at here, and so it's all assembled and together. I put a little tiny bit of power on the mainspring and it works nicely. This watch was provided to me in dire straits, I think. I've already taken the balance here and riveted on the staff. That was a job I did before, and then I had the jewel that I need to deal with here. Let me just put this down for a second. And I've got the balance cock here, and the balance cock has got jewel issues. So right now I've got a jewel just floating in there. That's a jewel setting just floating in there. And the job today, as you can see, that jewel setting is not in the hole. So I don't want to turn it around because it'll drop out. What I've got to do is shave material off of that jewel setting, because this is the upper jewel that would effectively go over the pivot of the balance staff. So this needs some work today, so I'm going to set up my lathe to just remove enough material off of the setting to allow it to drop down, and then let's just see if the balance spins freely once I have the setting in there. I still have to install the roller table, which is over here, and the hairspring as well, and then hopefully the whole darn thing comes together. I have the screws right there. It's the screws for that jewel setting, and there's the cap jewel right here. I'm just nudging it, nudge. So I'm gonna do some work there. I gotta set myself up and then work on that jewel setting. I'm just gonna shave the slightest bit of material off of that setting. It's gonna be very tricky because I think I've got to shellac it onto a stump and then put that into the, or what would we call it, a brass or copper brass? Yeah, it's a brass jewel holder. I can't use the jewel chucks for this because it covers the material I need to remove, so I don't think I can use jewel chucks. So I'm just going to have to shellac it up and then put it on the lathe. Make sure I use the tailstock. I use the back end of a needle to allow me to center that jewel setting once it's shellacked. But it's going to be a tricky job, so that's what I'm going to do today. Get this thing done and dusted, and I'll have 2 watches done for the gentleman I'm doing the watch work for. All the other stuff is working really well, so there's no problem there. I'll just put this back and stop talking and get working. Alright, this is JD back in business. So I got my lathe here. I've got a tailstock. You can't really see. I may just back that up after. You can see it as I bring it forward here. So this is a, call it holding tailstock. I could back the whole thing out, but I really want to see you to see the part of removing the material from the jewel setting. So I have to set the jewel setting up. This is the jewel setting sitting on Let me just get that in focus for a second. There it is, sitting on top of the balance cock. I got to take material off the edge of that jewel setting in order to use the jewel setting. So that's the job. So let's get at it. Doing at it. All right, welcome back. For you, it's only been a second. For me, it's been an hour. So I've got this piece of brass here. So I'm going to face this off. I found this little jobby-doo nippy thing. I'm not sure what I use this for, but it's just a little tiny piece of brass. And what I need to do is get that piece of brass the same diameter after I face it off, actually. The same diameter as the jewel setting, and just sort of shave enough material off the back end of this piece of brass to make sure this fits fine, right? So the jewel setting, just grab this here. So small. Need to use shellac. There's the jewel setting there. So this piece of brass diameter needs to be just smaller than this jewel setting to allow me to shave some material off of it. So let me just grab, is that right? Yeah, that's right. Hopefully the inner diameter will be fine, but I'm shaving ever so slightly bit of piece off. Is that good English? Shaving a little tiny bit off. So what I need to do is pick a graver that can allow me to face this off. Probably would have normally used just a file or whatever, and filed it down. But I'm going to just get out some of my gravers here and see which one I want to beat up with this job. This one looks okay. So this is your atypical graver. It's funny how much time watch work takes when you start getting into this stuff, right? So it's not easy when you're starting to deal with lathe work in order to repair a watch. So just tighten that up in there. And now I need to adjust my tip over tool rest. I haven't used this in a while. It's been a long summer, so I want to just bring this back a bit like that, and I want to measure where this thing hits here so it's the right distance. So this has to go up a bit like that, and I'd love my graver to just hit the center like that. Right now it's a little bit high, so I'm going to move it down just a tad like that, and then lock it in like that, and lock this in like this. Oh my God, lock that in. I'll do a watch check in a second, folks, so I just want to make sure this works. Why am I hearing noise? Yeah, I'm hearing noise in my lathe here. It's making noise as it's going around the circle. Trying to see where the noise is being made. It's thump, thump, thump. Oh, you know what? Very funny. Hitting my camera. I'm like, what's different with this setup? Oh yeah, my camera's in the way. So let me just shave some material off here, okay? And stop listening to crazy stuff. I may have to sharpen this a bit and also lower it a bit, because I can see that I'm a bit too high on that part, so just lower it a tad again. A tad. How much is a tad? Now I'm going to get down and dirty as well, so, and see what the heck I'm doing. There, I've taken enough material off that spike to just grab it with a pair of pliers and bend it and take it off that way. So I've got that. So I just grab a pair of flat nose pliers like this, and I should be able to just break that off. Maybe not. Oh yeah, it's bending. There you go. That's broken off. Just throw that down on the mat here. Now I need to face this off. And all I do is face it off this way. Now, one thing I want to make sure is that when I face this off, it's relatively flat. If it's not perfectly flat, then I don't mind if it's a bit concaved. Just a tad would be okay because it's just gripping the jewel setting. So let me just take a bit more material off here. I could use cross slides and make sure it's 100%, but this should do the job. And if I look at that jewel setting again, and I'm going to look at how that will stick on the end. I'm just going to grab a piece of Rodico. I got that Rodico from China. It's so bad. There's Rodico and then there's shit Rodico. The Rodico from China is shit Rodico, just in case you're curious. So there's my jewel setting right there. Now let's have a look at that because it's the outside rim I need to shave a bit off. So I'm going to shellac it on the other way. Yeah, I'm going to shellac it on like that. So see how wide this thing is. So it needs to take off some material. So I'm just going to shave some material off this thing until it gets down to the size, the diameter of that jewel setting. So I'm going to have to take a bit of material off of here. So bear with me. And of course, with this kind of material, it comes off pretty easy. But I do have to take a lot off. And what I wanted to do is make sure the tip of this rod is slightly less than the diameter of that jewel setting. So I spin this lathe. I think I'm spinning around 1,500, maybe 2,000, no more than that. It doesn't have to go very fast for brass, this kind of material. But when I'm making a jewel setting or doing something like that, then yeah, you do have to watch how fast you spin it so you don't overcut and leave you with nothing left. I'm just taking material off here, so I'm good. Test it in a second on the end to make sure I've got the right size here. I think I do have a long way to go. Let me just measure this again for the heck of it. Grab the jewel setting. I gotta make sure I don't lose the darn thing when I'm working on this. So yeah, I got a ways to go. I got about probably 5, or not 5, but probably about 2 millimeters to take off. Just keep working on this. Then I'll shave off the tip here to get that done, and then I can shave off the head part. As long as the tip is the right diameter, I'm not too concerned. I can even have a bevel on it. That way if I have a larger setting to work on in the future, then I've got enough material left here to do that. I might want to sharpen this. Well, actually, if I can just flip it to a different one, then I don't have to bother sharpening it right now, do I? Yeah, there's a different one here. I'll just change gravers here. I'm using my bigger gravers here, so it's so I don't have to deal with. These are carbide gravers, so they cut really well. I usually use them for steel, but these ones are great for anything pretty much. So look at the cutting on this one. Holy crap. I'm going to measure the jewel again, or the setting. I'm still thinking, I'm not sure which way I want to shellac this on. So that's about the width of the inner part of the hat. If I look at that as a top hat, it's the inner part. And I got to make sure when I shave the material off, I may want to install it this way so I can shave material off the outer part. And if I need to do a bit on the inner part, I can also do that. So let me take a bit more material off the end here. Maybe square that off a bit. That's a nice sharp graver there. You don't want it chattering. You don't want to take the graver. You don't want to ruin the tip on it either. So that's what I would call a nice shaving. I'm not running the lathe too fast right now. It's going pretty slow actually. I'm just trying to make sure I take enough material off here, allow the jewel setting to stick on once I heat that up. I'm eyeballing it to see how flat it is, right? So I don't get it larger on one side. So let me look at and see how that sits with the jewel here. If there's a little material left over the edge, would be great. Yeah, that's pretty good there. So I'm likely going to be able to stick that on. And if I look at that setting here on the other side, I might just want to stick it on like this, and then I can shave right on the edge, right? That might work perfectly. So let me make sure that this is faced off nicely too. I'm going pretty darn slow at this. I think that's good right there. Let me look at the setting again. I'm going to just shape it nice and easy. I don't want to drop the setting, by the way, onto the carpet, because then I'll have to do the carpet thing. So let me just take a little piece of Rodico and shape the end of the Rodico so I can grab that setting nicely. There's the setting there. So if I can stick it on there like that, then I can shave it perfectly for being accepted into that excuse me, into the setting here, into the balance cock. And if I look at the hole here in the balance cock, the rim on the inside is ever so small. That is a very small rim. And when I turn the if I turn the setting around and see if it fits in the rim, right, and very carefully do this, turn this around like that, re-stick it on to the Radico like that. I'm doing this on camera, so please be patient. And what I want to do is make sure that the base of that setting does go through. So let me, I'm going to just tip it just a bit here. There we go. And I want to put that setting into the hole here and make sure it goes through the hole. Right now it's not, which means I have to shave a little material off that side too. It's very close, but a little material has got to be shaved off the inner rim. So if you look at this jewel setting here, there's the outer rim that needs to take a bit of material off of that, and then the inner rim right here, I also need to take material off of that so it fits through the hole here, through this side when I do this. If I get that nice and close, if I go like that, it has to fit in there. So the jewel setting has to fit in both sides, this way, through here, and then through that little rim on the bottom. If it doesn't fit through the rim, then it's hopeless. So that's good. That's, I think, where I want this to be. And let me look at the inner rim part. See, that'll be facing outward, so I'm not too concerned with that. So I'm going to take a little tiny bit more material off of it just to make sure I got enough, small enough real estate to stick this thing on and not worry about it. All right, that, my friend, should do. Just turn this around. See, if my fingernail, my thumbnail was longer, I shaved it on the weekend. I'd be able to grab it. So that will go on like that and then be centered. Right, so let's do the shellacking of this thing and put this on. So let me set myself up. So what I need to do here, find a hole for this, whatever hole fits the best. That's actually pretty good right there. So it doesn't move around much. And what I'm going to do is put a piece of shellac on the end, and I'm going to heat up the shellac on this rod, right? And then I'm going to apply the jewel setting to the top of it, nice and easy. Then I'm going to take the whole unit here and then stick it into the lathe and then heat it up while I'm spinning it. So what I need to actually use is an iron, so a soldering iron for this. All right, I got my dual heat soldering iron. I'll show you how I do this once I get it dual heated up. I just looked at my drawer of all things important, and what I think I found was my giant bag of stuff with shellac. So this tool here is used for resetting or setting an impulse jewel into a roller table, which I have to do occasionally. Let me just get it out of here and see how hot that is on the back end, and use a candle for heating that up. And of course I have my giant bag of shellac right here. So this is enough shellac to last a watchmaker about 300-400 years. So if you look in there, there's like so much shellac, it's sickening. So all I want to do is take a piece of shellac. I don't need a whole lot. I just need a little tiny bit. Maybe just shake some down to the edge here. And I just want to put that on the tip of this, and I just take this piece of shellac right here, as you can see, and then I'm going to just break a piece off the end. Turn that around a bit. I'm going to turn that around here. Just like that, I guess. Just go like that, and just go crack. There's my piece of shellac right there. That may in fact be too much shellac, I don't know. So I'm going to put this on the end here very carefully. I'm hoping and praying here as well, by the way. I know you're not supposed to do that in watchmaking, but in this case here, I think there may be a requirement to hope and pray. So more praying than hoping, I think. So put this back into the bag. See how I duct tape the bottom of the bag? The reason I do that is so the bag doesn't accidentally rupture and there's material all over the place. You can do that with your tools as well, so when you put the tool in, it doesn't poke through the bottom of the bag, because duct tape is man's best friend, and that's why you use it. So I won't put this completely away yet, because I might need more shellac. Could have left some out, but I'll just put this on the side here, clean it up later. And now I have my setup here. And of course I'm going to move this, which the piece of shellac is likely going to fall off. No. There it is. I'll just make sure it's in view of the shimmer. So I'm going to rotate the camera a bit and get a new... Alright, I don't do this job very often, so I'm always worried about screwing it up. So what I'm trying to do, I'm going to be sticking this on, but I'm going to stick it on where the brim of the hat, the wider brim, is on the top. So the first thing I need to do is melt the shellac on here. Here's my soldering iron, nice and hot hopefully. Let's see if that provides enough heat to melt the shellac. It should. Some of that heat will be transferred directly through through the block and everything else as well, so I'm going to lose some heat on this. The other thing I could do is take my torch out, which I have, but it's not as controlled. So I just put this on the end. The other thing I have is a very wide piece of brass here, which is going to take a lot longer to heat this piece of brass up, being this wide. So I think I see the shellac already kind of bending a bit. Yeah, it's starting to bend a bit, which means there's heat applying. And likely the soldering iron is not super hot yet, so I just turned it on a few seconds ago. So I may just wait until it's super hot and then I'll apply the heat. Come on. You're making a liar out of me. Switch arms. Because I do want to be able to put that setting right on top once it's hot. Now, I don't know if there's any stories I can tell right now. Maybe tell a little story about a man named Jed. Poor mountaineer barely kept his family fed. So I can see that shellac kind of melting a bit on the edges, on the ends. Still needs to melt though. I don't want to touch it too much here because the tweezers will cause it to come off. There'll be a sudden melting point meltdown here in a second. It has a lot to do with the heat of my gun. I got it on 40 watt high right now instead of 20 watt low, so it should be providing enough heat. This is the boring part. I might speed this up when I make the video. Alright, it's starting to get meltier, I think. The other thing I could have done is shave more material off this rod. But I didn't, so there. Come on. I could take my torch to it, but that's just a bit extreme, isn't it? I'm holding it really close to the end of this thing now. And likely that it's getting pretty hot right now. I can see this shellac starting to ball up. It takes a while with this rod. If I had a much smaller rod, which I probably should have, it would work a lot faster. Again, the heat's getting dissipated by the rod and the base here, so it's not the perfect conductor. So I'll put the soldering iron at the top here and make sure and see if it gets any faster. Gets done a bit faster. I know one way of doing it is with a friggin' torch. So is it torch time yet? It might be. Alright, I'm getting bored. We're going to get the torch out. Yeah, it's Miller time. This is my torch. See how fast this does it. Kind of within a millisecond, this thing heats up. I'm just not sure whether the okay, it's not too bad. Where the shellac, yeah, it kind of got all the way through. So that's the torch method. That's a hell of a lot faster. I still want to use the soldering iron though for phase 2. So what I'm going to do in phase 2 here, while I'm talking, is I'm going to take this needle out, my famous needle, and I'm going to find a collet that will hold this needle. Alright, the collet number is A7. That holds the needle nicely. And what I'll do is take this needle now. I gotta move my super hot soldering iron here somewhere where it's not gonna burn me, because I'm gonna put it down below, but keep an eye on it so I don't set the place on fire. And now I've got to put this collet into the tail holding stock here, back here. So I can remove this now and just put this whole unit over on the side here. And then I don't think I need to have my big mat underneath here, because I don't think there's gonna be a lot of mess. Although I would like to sweep the crap off of that, right? Let me just bring it back up for a second. Do some general sweeping. I served with him in the military. But I'm telling you, my sense of humor is so good. So there, get rid of some of this flaky stuff here. Not all of it, I don't need to get rid of all of it. So just some of it. And I'll put that mat in the floor for now, make sure it doesn't get everywhere, and put my little brush back. You gotta have a little brush or you're nobody. Nobody, I tell you. So let me move this rig back and I'll try not to touch the camera. There we go. And I'll put it right about here. That's a good view right there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the collet where the needle is. This needle is going to go into this collet holding tailstock. So there's the tailstock there, right there. And if I were to drop this camera down just a tad, like that, you've got the tailstock here, which is made for holding collets, and I just have to put that collet in there and tighten it up. So let's just do that. Find out where the little groove is, and then tighten the tailstock. This particular tailstock's got a micrometer on the end, so on this tailstock, what I have to do is tighten this jobby doohickey on the end, and that allows me to move this back and forth like that. So I probably don't want it tight, because what I want to do is tighten the tailstock itself, and then after I start working on the jewel itself, then I can push the needle in to make sure that the jewel setting stays exactly where it's supposed to be. This is an art, not a science. It is an art, although I'm using scientific principles here. So I'm going to put this in here. I'm still not sure whether that shellac will hold the setting in place nicely. I'm hoping it will. And I'm going to spin this just a bit. There we go. I think that should be enough. Actually, a little less of this would probably work better, right? That way there's not as much spinning. All right, that's not too bad there. And then I move this up to the jewel. So here's the theory. The theory is that when I have the jewel centered, the end of that needle will help me push in. So I'm going to just tighten this up a bit. Tighten this tailstock up. And now it allows me to move this in and out for centering that. Now, what I want to do, I'm hoping this works, folks, so I want to use my soldering iron now in all of its greatness to heat this up. Oh, geez. Burnt my finger. I hope you got a really good laugh out of that, folks. But I want to use my soldering iron here to heat this up. The soldering iron is very hot right now, by the way, just letting you know. As I spin this, so I just put it on the bottom like that. I'm trying to heat up that shellac first, so the setting settles into the base. It's obviously not settled in yet, so you heat the shellac up, the jewel setting should sag downward. I think really I needed a smaller rod, because it's taking a lot of the heat out of the it's distributing the heat poorly. And I'm going to burn myself again. Somebody told me years ago that if you're wearing welding gloves and you burn yourself, then don't. Oh, there we go. So now it's starting to Now you see how that's centered? That's perfectly centered. Now I gotta get this soldering iron out of the way before I frickin' burn myself again. I'm gonna put it down below, nice and safe. So you got live action burning. Live action burning. So what I don't know yet is that whether that setting will hold while I try to move everything. So just trying to move the soldering iron somewhere where it's not gonna burn its plug, its own plug, or this thing is a pain in the butt. Alright. I got that out of the way, and now if I move this out of the way, do I have a jewel setting I can work on? I think I do. I'm not sure if it's stuck on there yet or not. So I'm going to back off this. I'm going to take this, actually take it completely off, just so you know what this looks like. This is the tailstock here. It's got a micrometer setting. You set that level on the back, and then this is the micrometer for it. And you can actually move that in and out like this and fine tune. See how that moves in and out? That's for fine tuning this if you're doing work with the tailstock and you need to do some very fine work on measuring your chopaways. So what I want to do here, I don't want to put a lot of pressure on this, so I'm likely not going to use this particular graver because this thing here is just too big. So I'm going to go to a smaller graver here, and I'm going to use a flat one, not a round one. So I've got these gravers here, and I'll show you what those look like. So this is, I want to use 4 flat, which is this one right here. I marked it F4F for flat, and these are, if you look at the name of these gravers, for you folks that say, what's the name of the graver you're using? V-A-L-L-O-R-B-E. V-A-L-L-O-R-B-E. So you can just Google that to find out where to buy them. And as you can see, they're, the graver on the end here is only 2 or 4 millimeters across. So I put that into my holder here, and I actually have to put a different set of goggles on to use this because it's just so precise. And first thing I want to do is get the tip over tool rest configured correctly. So if I do this and have a look at where it is that good enough or not? I think it's got to go down just a tad. And it has to go down because of the length of that graver. So just push that down just a bit. Make sure it's kind of level with the piece, so it's parallel, bacon parallel to the piece, and then it should be good to go. Now to actually use this properly, I use times 15, and these are like $9 on Amazon. These don't cost you anything, but I use this for doing very close work. Now I'm going to start removing material here, so this could be interesting. I'm looking at the flat part of my graver, and it's not actually that flat, so I want to make sure I don't remove too much material. First of all, the inside one needs some material removed. So I removed material from the inside, and I'm going to very carefully see if this fits. And it's just going to fit on this side here, so. Nope, not yet. A little bit more material to be taken off. This is really tricky, folks. Oh, got the wrong graver there for a second. I may want to trim the angle in my graver too. You definitely don't want your graver to get caught, because that'll just make the jewel setting fly away. So now I'm going to look and see if it fits again. I have to measure the bottom part. It does go in, but just, so I'm going to take just a tad more off of it. And from the inside, hopefully. That should be good. I don't even want to touch this with Rodico in case it flies off, but it should be fine. So let me just... I think it needs a little bit more on the inside, otherwise the depthing is going to be wrong. Let me take a bit more off of this. I keep grabbing the wrong graver here. And, oh, that is the wrong graver. What do you know, eh? Let me see. It's the way I actually trim that graver. It's at a bad angle, so... That should be good. So I'm looking at the part right now, and the angle is correct. So the fit should be perfect right now. So now I got to do the top part, and the top part is going to be tricky. So I've taken a little material off the hat, right? So now I've got to take some more material off. This is a bit tricky, so I may take some shellac off first. No, that's not going to work. I'm just going to remove material from the top. I kind of know where it's right there. Now if I take too much material off of here, then the hat won't hit the inside rim, and then I've got trouble and I got to do it all over again. So here I'm just going to set it in and see how it fits. Nope, still not fitting. I got to take more material off. It's not a simple job. I wish that shellac was gone, but I know if I start working on the shellac, I'll end up ruining it. There, I know you can shave so much material off so fast when it's a very thin piece of material, so I'm really taking my time here. Just a bit more. You can see the way I'm fitting that in. It's like, if I look at the rim, as I just hit my head on the camera here, so sorry about that, folks. If I look on the rim, yeah, I still got lots of rim left, so no problem there at all. So let me just keep working on this, take a little bit more material off of it. That was a perfect view, by the way. I could see everything going on there. That rim is getting very thin. Did I take off too much there? I'm not sure. I might have. That would suck if I did. Right there. It went all the way through now. Did I take too much off? I gotta move the camera out of the way or something to check this, because I did. It took off way too much too fast. So I don't know whether I've got enough rim to hold the setting in place. I think I'm good. It's pretty tight, but that's not too bad. So now what I need to do is remove the setting from the shellac. So I'm just gonna cut this a bit, cut it away a bit here, just get rid of the shellac. I did take just a bit too much off, but I think it'll still work. If it doesn't work, I got to do this whole process over again. And if I have to do the whole process over again, I don't really need to videotape it. You just have to make sure you're careful taking material off. There's a look at that setting just stuck on there. Now, what takes this off is isopropyl alcohol, I believe is what does that. So I'm going to leave that iron in there so I can, so here, let me just show you what that looks like. That's the setting stuck on the end of the rod. The old setting on the end of the rod trick. Trying to get it centered properly. There it is there. Now that was shellacked on enough to be able to let me work on it. There's still a little bit of rim remaining, and I think it's just enough to keep this jewel inside of the watch without a problem. So because the hat on the inside was the perfect size. So now I've got to get this in some isopropyl alcohol to take the jewel out and see if the setting works, and then that's it. Now, as I've done a million times in my videos, I'd like to advertise for the Airy Loop. The Airy Loop is the most amazing loop you can buy for your glasses. It's about 120 bucks for this loop. It's not cheap. And I have glasses with ×3 on the bottom and computer reading on the top. So that's my Airy Loop advertising. So here's the setting. And I'm going to have another look at this configuration to make sure this goes in and sits nicely in the hole. There is a little bit of a lip left. Yes, sirree, bub. So is that enough lip to hold it in place? The answer is yes. That looks pretty good right there. So let me just show you up close if I can. There we go. There's the jewel in there. Now the only problem it might have is end shake. If that jewel's not low enough, right, in the setting, then I might have an end shake issue. If that's the case, there's nothing I can do because that lip can't go any lower. That means I have to try a new setting and keep working at it. So let me just put a little bit of alcohol in here, because I know that will cause all kinds of problems with this. Take a little drink myself. Oh, just kidding. Gotta have a sense of humor in watchmaking. So I figured I would do a whole bunch of watches today, but the owner of this watch better appreciate the work I'm doing, because it's a lot of work for the price of the watch. So I'm just gonna stick it in here. And that should, I could have heated it up, I guess, to remove it, but I know the alcohol will work on it, but maybe not on the inside, right? Should I heat this thing up and remove it? Yeah, I'll just heat it up, remove it, and then clean it. So I need to clean this off with probably some watch paper, otherwise the alcohol is going to go woof, and I'm going to have other issues. other issues. Just hang on, I'm leaning over to get my watch paper. I think I got to clean up my office. Cottage is closing in 2 weeks, and because of that, I'll have time. So we'll just rub this part here so I don't have to, maybe it'll come off when I do that. I doubt it. That's stuck on nicely, man. So that technique I used earlier is perfect. That works exceptionally. So now let me see if I can get this little piece of, get this jewel to fall off. With the world's hottest iron. I touched right here earlier. I'll have to look and see what kind of scar that left. So I can heat up the setting a bit too, but I don't want the jewel itself to crack. So I'm very conscious of that. A little worried is what I should say, right? Is that moving at all? No. Plan B is to get the torch out again, folks. I do know that the torch works. The torch rules. I'm going to put some pressure on this. Oh, there we go. You see it sliding off there? I don't want it sliding onto the iron, so let's just move it off like that. It's still stuck again. And am I going to be able to get that off? Come on, move. There we go. It's wanting to come off here. It's just the way I'm holding the tweezers sucks. Only takes a millisecond for this thing. There we go. So I got that off. I'm just going to toss it into the alcohol. Like that. I can use that again. I make sure I put this in where my chucks are so I can reuse this in the future, because it's a good piece. It worked well. So this jewel here should fit nicely in there. Just, is the depth correct? That's the question. Once I put that jewel in, did I have the right depth in there? So I'm going to use a brush here and see if I can brush some of this shellac off of this jewel setting. So I got to clean the hole out and peg this out, and I think I'm going to use a pivot gauge to do that, because I tried this and going rah 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 to get that to work, and I tried using Rodico, and there's still a little bit of crap in that hole, maybe from maybe leftover shellac. So I'm just going to use my pivot gauge and try that. Now it's through. There it is. So I actually had to push the shellac. There's a little bit of shellac stuck in the jewel hole, so I had to push that out, and I used the pivot gauge to do that. I think it's clear. I think it's clean. I think it is. I think it is. There it is there. Where's that camera? There it is there. The hole is officially cleared. Fingernail proof. Maybe that's it. That's my video for today. Hopefully I can cut some of this nonsense out. I think that's fitting super nice in here, so I just need to oil that up. I'm going to wipe that with Rodico just a bit before I put oil on it, but I want to oil that up. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Throw that in like this. And like I said before, if you need the base to line up, you just, there we go there. Look at that. A thing of beauty. A thing of beauty. That's it, folks. I'm going to put the cap jewel on, oil it and stuff like that. That's it. So that's how you adjust the jewel setting. Thanks a lot for watching my videos and my channel. And I'll see you next time. I'm JD. This was a long one today. I apologize.